Warning.
Watch very closely now. 3, 2, 1. Bzow!
The following podcast features terrible jokes.
You know you can use Hot Wheels cars when you need to make a saving throw in D&D? Every car is die-cast.
Usually about board games.
We want the fun. Gotta have that fun.
Must insist that no one attempt to recreate any joke performed on this podcast.
We had less technical issues than $1 million company.
All right!
This is Boards and Swords.
Hey, I said it wasn't going to happen, but we're here. It's Boards and Swords. This is a podcast where we have bad jokes, we got good folks, and we got Gen Con to talk about. Who am I? I'm Chris Renshaw. I'm one of your hosts. I'm going to slide it over as I click past the me eating a burger screen to Mr. Philip Herbeck all the way on that side, followed by...
What's going on, everybody?
Mr. Shawn Pearson there in the middle.
Hello. Thanks for in the middle. I just see your face eating a burger in the middle, but hello. Thanks for having me.
That's because you can't see the stream part. I don't have the stream on there. It'll just be infinite Chris's. So, yeah, I said there wasn't going to be a stream, and then I realized that maybe a stream wouldn't be a bad idea. Because Shawn was my Phil substitute partner in crime at Gen Con this year. And just with everything going on, it was hard to record. It was hard to get in the mood to record actual video content.
They make a pill for that.
Sure. Good. You're not wrong. Maybe they'll sponsor us one of these days. Because, everybody, Blue Chew. Every podcast is sponsored by Blue Chew these days. But, so I've got some videos, and I've got a lot of pictures, and we've got stories. So we're just going to kind of do a recap show this way, because otherwise it was going to be I record this and put it together. So why not just put it together live, and there's a better chance of it coming out on time. So
Good idea.
I do actually, I said there was no news, but let's do, where is it? Which button is it? All I got to say, so a couple news pieces. First off, there was the piece about like $30,000 worth of Magic cards got stolen.
More than that.
Yeah.
You need to add another
Oh, did
zero
I say
there.
30,000? Yeah, sorry, $300,000 worth of.
100,000.
And it took them forever to say what type of cards, so everybody was like, "Now we know why Lorcana's selling out."
Yeah.
So,
And I saw those comments on the posts
Yeah.
everywhere. It was like, tell us what cards are stolen, because now we can be on the lookout for them.
yeah, that's exactly what the people at Gen-Con be like. That way we know if there's some shady people selling, a whole ton of like Magic cards, whatever it is that we know what to. But I mean, it's not even that hard. Like, I'm surprised they haven't caught them yet. Because like, have you seen Philip where they weren't even
It was a
wearing.
pallet.
It was
They grabbed a pallet.
It
and
wasn't
like,
just that, but like there
walk out.
were cameras and they weren't wearing masks.
Yeah.
In fact, Shawn
was-
commented, "Look, one of them looks like him."
One of them looked like very much like a 20-year-old Shawn. And
Yeah.
I was feeling very uncomfortable with it. Thankfully, I'm bald now.
Yeah.
I have a big belly, because otherwise I would have been worried that
It's
But
one of those. You should like just hurry and run to the police and be like, "Hey, wasn't me. That wasn't me.
They caught me on the camera. It wasn't me.
Wasn't me. I'm sorry, officer. I didn't know I couldn't do that."
Yeah. So a lot of that story is still in progress. The biggest news. I mean, oh my god, as Sunday was rolling around, and I was like, I haven't taken many like pictures of the con. I should do that. So I had the camera out and was all over the place. I wanted to take a picture of the Lorcana big huge banner that they did and just be like, they probably could have spent less money on promotion and more money on production, because they honestly didn't need any advertising at all. Like, word of mouth traveled fast. And
they could have had like no banners and paper signs printed from the hotel.
yeah,
like computer center.
Yeah.
People
this
still.
is toilet paper. That would
That would have
Yeah.
like just 3 circles for Mickey's ears, and that would have been enough.
Yep.
Oh my gosh, everyone was crazy for some Lorcana this year. That was like and we all knew it was going to be that way because everybody going up to Gen Con, that's all they could talk about was Lorcana. In fact, what they should have done is just ripped out the Ravensburger booth and just threw it in a hotel somewhere, and like one of the ballrooms, and then most of the problems of Gen Con would be gone. Because, like, heaven help you if you were buying anything other than Lorcana from Ravensburger, because it ain't happening. And it's not like that they needed, like, a lot of people have started doing having their own separate booth, and Ravensburger even had a separate room, but you still have it on the floor because you want that floor traffic.
Yep.
But they didn't need the floor traffic. In fact, they were impeding everybody else's floor traffic.
And it was annoying for people because let's say you wanted to go try That's Not a Hat.
Yeah.
You had to wait in line for God knows how long to get into the booth to try a silly game about something not being a hat.
And they even had a coupon book where it was like, if you buy That's Not a Hat, you get, what was it, like something party or pinata animal or something like that? Party pinata or something. So
my favorite thing that they did, so they were giving away these Mickey Mouse promos the initial night to everyone in line. And the next day, they were showing up right away for like upwards of like $1,000 on eBay, selling for that.
$1,400.
Friday morning.
So Thursday morning is when everything went crazy. So like the dealer hall or the convention center itself opened up at like 5 a.m. And there's videos of people like running to the closest door to the Ravensburger booth. And so they're starting and they're kind of self-forming their own line. And then they get about like 2 hours away from dealer hall opening, and the Gen Con people are like, bruh, we don't have lines here. Y'all need to fill in the gaps. So then everyone's like, okay, and just compacts by the door, and everyone's that's been there since like 5 a.m. are getting like severely pissed off and stuff. In fact, so Shawn, were we both up top at this point?
Well, yeah.
So we were
Thursday.
on the second floor looking down because we're like, this is going to be nuts. So as 10 o'clock rolled around, we noticed like a lurch like 2 minutes beforehand, like everything really lurching towards the door and like ultra compacting. But I figured that was just them getting ready to open the gates and such. And then 10 o'clock hit and the line's not moving and the door and all the crowd's not moving. And I'm like, what is going on? Until I look behind me at the other doors and it's completely empty because everyone's gone in that way. And what it is just the line around the Ravensburger booth is just not moving because that crowd is just lurched in that much.
Oh, man.
So it was utter chaos. So that day, they came out. Ravensburger's like, special announcement. And they're like, we're going to make a line now. And everyone's like, good. But the line started literally at 6 p.m. when the dealer hall closed. So there was people there waiting in line over like 16 hours for the next day's Lorcana cards. And that it winded up and down one section of it, and then there was just this line, this roped off line down the entire convention center that had breaks in between so you could walk to the other rooms. But there's just the Lorcana line.
And Friday they got outside and wrapped around, like down whatever street that is where the food trucks used to be. It was like down, like when I arrived Friday, I was like, why is there a lineup here so early? And it was just like I was like, oh, that's why there's a line up here.
That's nuts.
Yeah. No, it's crazy. I was going to take like some slow-mo video, and it's just really nothing but like maybe one or two people moving their arms because you just can't see anything because nobody's moving. And I mean, there were plenty of demos that happened over the weekend because they had like all the events, and Shawn kept trying to get into an event. You never did make it into an event, did you?
No, I got super excited one time on like Thursday or something that like because you go into the app and refresh if someone has dropped their ticket and someone dropped the ticket for a game and I kept doing it, but obviously I was way too slow. People were doing the same thing because I didn't want to just try. I didn't want to buy anything. I just wanted to try the game with like the starter
Right.
deck to see if I would like it. Like I didn't care to buy it and scalp it, which just seems to be what most people are doing. But no such luck for now.
And I mean, actually, if you look at some of I saw a post about this today where if you look in the Lorcana groups that are on like Reddit and Facebook and stuff, there's all kinds of drama going in there because like everyone's upset that the people that, everyone that couldn't go to Gen Con is upset at the people that could go to Gen Con. And like, I remember I saw somebody commenting that there's just like no sense of like etiquette or like gamer etiquette at all. It's just everyone just being just asses. And so it's oh man, it's just that people it is just the Disney aspect kind of thing that like Rusted Beetle posted in the chat. But there's like we were kind of suspecting that it's probably like 70% of the people that were there were scalping, and the only 30% were the people that were like actually there with their kids. There was another post.
Sounds about right.
There was another post where somebody posted on Facebook and said that my kids get to learn that when you pay for their food that you have to do what they say. And he's like, so the kids had to sleep overnight in the convention center in line. So that they could, because then he shows the post where it's like 2 of everything that you could get. I'm like, I'm pretty sure. Like, I really hope that's a joke because otherwise, I'm pretty sure that's child abandonment.
I don't. Well, no. I don't think it was abandonment. I think the parents are in line.
No,
So the kids had to be in line with the parents, just sleeping on the floor.
Oh no, the parents made it sound like the post made it sound like they slept on the floor while the parents were gaming.
Oh no, my thought reading that thing, because I saw it and I saw them getting roasted in the comments.
Yeah,
was because you can't abandon your kids, so the kids are in line in the convention center with the parents sleeping on the floor.
Jeez, that's off. That's still that should be some sort of child abuse or neglect.
Child neglect, yeah.
But well, I guess if you're multiple people, it doesn't matter. But I know like they instituted like a no poopy policy, so you couldn't go to the bathroom if you had to. There was no leaving lines for the lines.
Yeah, so there was that, and then this was the first year that they had not had any sort of vaccine requirement or masking. So all the people that couldn't have come in the years past were now suddenly there. And so it was chaos. So I kept hearing, and I think it just the same stat just kept getting passed around. People kept saying like 80, 85, but the official announcement came out and it was just over 70,000, which topped the highest that they had done, which was apparently in 2019, it was just under 70,000. But yeah, they were sold out. Saturday tickets were sold out, and 4-day badges sold out.
So it probably wasn't that much more than 2019, but it still felt.
It felt like, well, because if you look at it, the stats were in 2022, it was 50,000. So between last year and this year, 20,000 more people showed up. So, and not only that, but like it just the dynamic in the hall was different too. For good and for bad. So for good, like there was far less. I want to say that I bet there was a lot more competition for booths this year because I saw a lot less of like gaming accessories. Like a lot of the people that'll do specialized tokens, like Meeple Source was there, but they also sell games, for Stonemaier and such. But like a lot of the people that would sell like tokens for like all the different things, or like a couple of the terrain. That's why I noticed, because a couple of people that would sell different pieces of terrain that were there maybe last year, they weren't there this year. A lot of kind of the random used kind of spots, like like people that the booths that would sell like the used Warhammer figures that you could bring in, or that you could go like, oh, I just want to buy a pre-assembled, pre-painted group that somebody else had sold. Those were gone. Also, the booths that would have like nothing but RPG books that are old and you could go through them. There was like some booths had them, but the ones that were totally about it, those were gone. A lot of the stores that specialized in like every game and just like be like, I'm a game store, I just happen to have a booth. Those were gone. Like I only saw like 1 or 2 of those. I mean, on the plus side, we mentioned, or Shawn and I mentioned during the thing, there was far less like pop figure booths.
Oh,
There was a lot. That was nice.
Yeah.
And I saw it from my perspective, which is very much like board gamery. Like I mentioned to you, Chris, like I love going to like Gen Con for like finding all these games that I never would have heard about otherwise, or
Right.
or smaller publishers that there just are. And I feel like I didn't like, there were no like discoveries for me. Like even the games that I discovered were by big companies.
Yeah,
Like
because I think there was that was the thing, is there were so many large companies kind of competing for space. But like, I thought it was weird that, you know, you would get a false impression of how full the dealer hall was because so you know how usually there's the left side of the dealer hall that has like all the big names like Paizo and Asmodee and stuff. That's the part that's usually like slammed, and then as you make your way to the other wall, it kind of thins out as you get to like the indie booths. Do you know what I mean, Philip?
sorry, I was reading Beatles stuff.
But like, you know how like there's the popular side of like the Catan booths and the Paizo booth where those will usually be slammed. And then the other side is a little bit more freer, like all the indier kind of game publishers. That there's
the
a little
game
bit,
publishers and the podcasters and that kind of stuff.
yeah, that's a little bit more open. It was flipped this year, which sucks because the the larger publishers, they usually make more room around their booths for people.
Yeah.
And the other side's a little bit more stricter with the setup. And so like the side where like all the indie kind of people, that side would be slammed, and then the other side was like a lot more open. You're like, man, there's not that many people here. And then you get across to the past aisle 1,000, then you're like, oh.
I think the reason for that is, so the other thing in the past, Philip, is like there would be like 2 or 3 or 4 rooms outside of the hall that companies had. Like Renegade would have room. This year there were, I don't know, like 20.
Yeah.
There were a whole bunch of other ones.
That's
so
true.
A lot of the bigger companies, all your pre-sales, if you pre-ordered anything, you don't go to the booth, you went to their room to pick it up. So I think that kind of made their booths a lot more manageable and less people around their booths because people weren't always going there to pick up their pre-orders like in the past.
That's very true. I didn't think about, I forgot all about that. Rusty Beatles brought up a few points in the chat room talking, because I literally had this discussion with Heather over the weekend about when would it be time for them to renew their contract, and it looks like they literally announced it after the weekend ended, where they're there in Indy through 2030. And they actually, part of the deal in driving it was they're actually working on expanding the convention center. So that main building that's like directly across the street from the doors where the food trucks are, that's going to get turned into a new Signa by Hilton convention center hotel that's going to have convention center rooms and access and such. Probably won't be like till 2026 before we see it. But part of that is they were doing construction on there, so the trucks were not actually on Georgia Street this year. Oh. So actually where it was is there's a parking lot to the convention center on South Street, which is the street that's between the convention center and the stadium. So you would walk down that long hallway and there'd be a parking lot right there. And that's where like all the tents were set up, like the Sun King Brewery. That was the block party. And then on South Street were the food trucks that would go all the way down. And I got to say, that atmosphere I actually liked a lot better. It just seemed more open and less like shoved in. There was more table space. there was actually like sit down table space instead of just a bunch of like bar top tables. There was, or I mean, even if you couldn't get a table, you were not that far away from the stadium, and they even encourage people to go in the stadium to eat.
Oh, that's cool.
And the only downside to that aspect was the train was right there, and anytime it would go by, you just couldn't hear anything. Like you're trying to place an order and just nothing. But I feel like that was the very, very minor to that.
Yeah, it's more an environmental hazard than
Yeah. So now feels like a good break to throw in a clip. So you know what, we talked about and we talked about Catan. Now feels like a good time to talk about Catan soccer. So I'm gonna sock it right over to the video we got here.
and football.
Football is life.
All right, so you're familiar with Catan. Yep. So this is our expansion for Catan. Yep. And so you take your base game, and you're going to set up your base game. What you're going to do is you're going to drop out the desert tile, and you're going to take out like a sheep or a wheat tile, and you're going to drop in your 2 soccer fields. And on the soccer fields, everybody starts with 1 token, which is a shot token. That's going to give you a shot on goal when it's time to play soccer. If you want more shot tokens, you can place a settlement on a soccer hex or upgrade to a city on a soccer hex. And then you're going to add a token to your stack. That builds your team, and they're going to go with you through the rest of the game. You can also, if you're late in the game, you got 1 night, your buddy over here's got 5, you're like, largest army's out of the question. After you play this, you can discard it to get another shot. So during the game, this is your soccer league board. It'll show you who's leading in the league and who you match up against. And so you play different people throughout the season. So during the game, whenever anybody plays a settlement or a city anywhere on the board, at the end of the turn, you're going to stop and you're going to play some soccer. So Reds are going to play blue. Reds got 2 shots, so they got 2 tokens. Blue has 1. You're going to take your dice, and it's not a dexterity game. You're looking for how this lands. So if you roll it, and if it lands black up, that's a miss. If it lands red side up, that's going to be a goal. So if red outscores blue, red gets to move 3 spots along the track. And you're picking up resources and development cards along the way. This will show you whoever's in the lead gets a 3 victory point bonus. And like longest road, that's going to go back and forth, and it's not guaranteed. Because of that, you also play to 11 instead of 10. If somebody makes it all the way to the end and lands on the cup, that locks in, and the soccer part's done, and you just finish playing Catan. All the other rules are the same. It's just a fun little mini game of soccer that you can play in the middle.
I'm asking how much it is.
It's $19.99, and it comes with all the soccer field, the 2 hexes, and all of the tokens.
All right. So were y'all able to hear that? Philip and Shawn?
Not through Discord. I'm listening to it through YouTube.
Gotcha. Okay.
Yeah, I couldn't go through Discord either.
Okay. I know sometimes it's iffy, so I wasn't sure actually. And now I need to stand by one moment. I need to adjust because I had to turn up the computer so that because it came through really low, and now it's like y'all's voice is just super loud.
Huh?
Yeah, exactly.
What? See the output volume 200%.
Yeah, I don't know why it was that way. Oh, because in the past y'all been like really quiet. So
Go up to 300. Go louder.
All right, so let's see here. So yeah, I started off by my trip by going to Smashburger and having Smashburger for breakfast because they had just opened up.
No.
Then there was I'm using this to kind of remember things. So Wednesday arrived, and I got there like super early because like Heather and Mike, they weren't getting in till like 6 in the evening, and I'm like, that's too late. Come on now. So the only other chance I could get, and without it being somewhere in that late, by the time I managed to book, was a 6 a.m. flight out of Dulles. So I got in at like 10, 11 o'clock. It was like 11 or 12 by the time I got to downtown. So there was a lot of like, well, now what do I do? Because I had not gotten enough contacts in to be like, hey, let's hang out. So I was just really, a lot of it was just hanging out with Shawn. So of course we got Steak and Shake right off the bat.
Or you.
And then I got my first purchase, which was these 40K index cards, because we went to that Good Games store that's like right behind. It's like on the same street, I think, that the Home 2's on.
Okay.
You know the game store that's like 3 blocks away.
Yeah.
So we went in there, hung out. I got some stuff there. Oh, this is what the dealer hall looked like, the line beforehand on Thursday. So this is but this is the door right by Ravensburger. So eBay was there again. They had their
carpet is so ugly now.
Yeah, I love that. By the way, eBay has one of the coolest booths ever, because it's a castle, and they've even got like a fancy door that you can go up. And I'm pretty sure, like, I see people going up on it. I think that's where they're holding their business meetings, is up in that booth.
Oh,
I think they were doing like Magic people's autographs, or like
or
artists.
that could be true too.
I saw people going up with like binders of cards and stuff.
Yeah, or maybe they were selling cards, because eBay now owns TCG Player, and so maybe they were getting cards like graded or something.
That's where all the Lorcana scalping was going on.
Well, apparently, I did hear this. Apparently, like, all the people who buy cards there were turning people away for Lorcana because the market is so ridiculous, and they didn't want to be.
It was funny.
Paying eBay prices for it, so everyone was being sent away.
Thursday and Friday night, the Mickey promos were going for like
$1,400. I saw one.
Well, no, some of those were like the rare cards, but yeah, there were some that high. But like the average that they were being sold for was like $300, $400. And these were promos that like all you had to do was spend $25 of anything at the Ravensburger booth, and you got a card. Like Friday, when they finally had the line organized and everything, before the doors even opened, they just went through and just gave everybody cards. And was there a guy with a pallet jack in line? Oh, man, that's good. But like by the time you got to Saturday, those prices had hit the dirt, and they were like $20, $30. And I was like, yeah, that's what happens when you suddenly get a flood of them on the market.
Mm-hmm.
Let's see what else we got here. 3D Catan, of course. If you do want to spend $300 on a board game, and then
Versus.
So Versus is a game that's been out for a long time. Like, it started as a CCG, and then they brought it back as kind of this LCG, like expandable card game where you don't need to buy boosters, you just buy a box, but you can mix all the cards together. And I've been seeing it a lot, and Ravensburger Upper Deck had they always had big, huge things for it, and you always see these big things for it. And this year it was, they had 3 of them. They had the Versus the Boys, and then Mortal Kombat, and also AEW, which is like All Elite Wrestling, so like real wrestlers in it. So Shawn and I were like, you know what? Let's actually get a demo of a game in, and we cheated the line apparently and went into because they didn't say like that you had to go. There was no sign that said you had to go to the front desk and like sign up for a demo. We just walked right into the booth, and there was a seat open, and we just sat down.
So it's nice because it was the only time all week I was able to do that.
Yeah, exactly. So we tried out the Versus system. It's interesting.
Okay.
It feels very much like a lot of other games that are in that same route where, like you have stuff that you pay money for, and then resources, whether it's mana or whatever. Like you have your mana equivalent, but the cool thing is there's actual mana cards that help you play, that help you do abilities. But if you don't have that, you could just take any card in your hand and flip it over, and now that's a mana card basically. I'm going to say mana because I don't know instead of saying a resource or whatever. We're just going to use the magic terms here. And then you're just fighting to kill your main character, but it sucked because like every time I would be able to get, I just had probably just a terrible hand where it was like I was only able to summon like one guy, and Shawn was able to kill it, and our guys were playing the Mortal Kombat one. Our guys were equally as matched, so like I had more attack but less defense, but he had the opposite. So whenever our two guys fought, they both took each other out.
Okay.
But he had one more health than I did, so every turn they would just fight, and it's like, well, crap, I just can't keep doing this because then he'll win because I have one less health than he does. And I kept trying to bring people out and trying to get like abilities to go off, and he just kept finding like and because I could only put like one guy out at a time because that's just what I had in my hand. He was able to quickly get rid of that one guy, and then, you know, go back to directly attacking. So, what did you think of it, Shawn?
Fine. I would play it again. I wouldn't my issues with Versus at the beginning were kind of the same thing now. It's kind of fiddly. At least I find it fiddly with like you're constantly having to put counters on stuff and you're constantly having to move things up and down. It's just too fiddly for me. I don't like that amount of fiddle in the game. I also think though that's a thing that like once I seem to recall with Versus, once someone kind of gets out ahead, there's a bit of it's hard to catch them. Like once they have the advantage, it's not like huge swings. Maybe some of the sets are different. I don't know, but I seem to recall that being a thing as well. So it was okay. It was playable. It was not playable. So.
Right. It would be nice to I would try some of the other, because like I was playing Mortal Kombat, but I don't remember. My Mortal Kombat experience is very limited, but it was either that or the boys, and you know, other than a little bit of the show. I mean, I know the show, but that's about it. But so yeah,
it's pretty neat that you could play different like IP against each other. That I could see that being a draw for people.
It's great for like you can mash those up, and like you could use cards from other set, but it seems like you want to stay within each IP just to help make your deck better, because some of the synchronizing. But you could totally be like Iron Man versus Homelander. So let's see what else we got here. We played FanDuel. So all right,
okay.
Let's hold on. Let's take a second to talk about how terrible the coupon book was this year. So one of the best bets of the things about, and I talked with someone else about it, and they were like, yeah, it's probably the economy, which I get it. But like all the coupons this year were pretty much like spend $50 to $75 to $100 in our booth and you get a free pin or something. There was very little like come to our booth for this free thing. Like there was the standard Crystal Cast free die. That was about
the free D6, yeah.
Yeah, that was about it. Except for Catalyst, like last year, I loved it because they had half off a BattleTech box or $5 off anything. And I was like, if that's the case, I'm going to buy me a couple of core boxes to like give away as gifts. But like, no, they didn't have any of that. They just had like, you could get free personalized dog tags, which I never did. I probably should have. That would have been cool. But, or if you tried any of their demos, then you got a game for free.
Oh, sweet.
Yeah. So, but what it was actually, it's kind of an ingenious way that they did to get rid of like overstock. Because what they did is they had 4 games that they just had stacks of. And these are like games that have been out for years, like Vikings, the TV show, the board game, and this other one. Here it is. Dwarven Miner Reforged. Here, I'll bring it up on full screen here. Like, yeah, this game that like nobody's really heard of. Like still in shrink and everything. But all you had to do was demo one of their games and you got it for free. So I got the Viking one because Ashley loves the TV show. And then Shawn's like, I don't know about this. I was like, sit down, play the demo. If you don't want the game, give it to me and I'll throw it. You're like that was the Dwarven Miner.
Oh, nice.
So and that's just going into my giveaway pile.
There you go.
Yeah, so
How about this game that we demoed?
Yeah, so I was getting to that.
Okay.
I'm using the pictures as a guide. That just reminds me of about the coupons and stuff. And so we sat down and played Flan Double and the Dragon's Eye, which the Dragon's Eye is like this little red ruby thing here, which basically, and I could be explaining this wrong because I didn't fully understand some of the rules. I was just kind of going with what the guy told me. You basically roll this die. It's a push or luck game. You roll these die, and based on what you roll, you get loot. Like if you get the little purple Fan Double guy, he's like a gnome with a purple hair and purple beard. Then you could steal something from anyone else's board, or you could steal the Dragon's Eye itself. And then some of the others you could get gems or money or what. And you had 3 spaces on your player board. You had loot, stash, and vault. The Dragon's Eye could only stay in the loot. Like, you can't do anything else. But every turn, you were allowed to move one thing from loot into stash or one thing from stash into vault. And if it got to vault, no one could take it. But you would, like, push your luck because there's these dragons on there. And if you got, like, 3 dragons, then your turn's over and you wouldn't get anything.
Okay.
And basically, I just manipulated the board until everybody kept getting people from getting stuff until it got around to, like, Shawn managed to win by he had the winning condition is you have the one of each color gem and the Dragon's Eye, the game stops and you count up points. But everybody else had just gotten rid of everything off their board, so it was like, well, you win.
I was pretty excited because I never win a game, so that's why I really wanted to talk about this. I liked it a lot. I just feel like I have like a bunch of other games that are the exact same thing.
Yeah.
Like this. So like
it's very like zombie dice-esque. That's the feel that it gave me. Like the where you're like rolling for brains, and you know, like if you get the shotgun shells, then you lose or whatever. I forgot. It's been so long since I played zombie dice. But that kind of like, are you going to keep rolling until you get the bad thing kind of dice play. There's a lot of games that do that. But it was nice. It was cool. The components were really nice. That was the one thing I saw. But you're right. It wasn't standout-ish, but it was enjoyable if you just didn't care about. There was no skill. It was just, are you lucky or aren't you?
And now we know why I won. Bam.
Do you have anything else you want to say about Fan Double?
Just that I won.
Oh,
That's
okay.
it. That's all I got.
The Goodman game. So I went to the Goodman Games booth because that's one of the other things. That was the other big thing that they had in the coupon book. Is every year Goodman Games does a. These are the people that make Dungeon Crawl Classics, and they always have like a deal where it's like you can get a softcover rulebook for $10, or you can get one of their adventures for $1. And I really wanted to try and get the Love Mutants of Castle Heartache, but it was not one of the ones that was $1. So I just got this generic Frozen in Time. It's a level 1 adventure. Last year I got a level 0 adventure, but I did happen to find one printed version of it, and so I did pay the $10 for a physical copy now of Love Mutants of Castle Heartache.
Very nice.
Yeah, so I've got that in here. But as Beatles pointing in the chat, pinball. The cool thing is they had pinball machines like on display in their booth that were all set to free play.
That's nice.
Yeah, and there was also the aisle. You know how there's usually like a couple of video games that goes down to
down to the stadium.
Down to the stadium. This year it was like a huge line of pinball machines, and they were all set up with like Dave and Buster's cards. Like you literally went and got a card, and then like played, and then like scanned it in to like figure out your pinball or to play pinball, because those weren't set to free play. And they even had trophies for like, I guess maybe it was each, because there was a bunch. I want to say there was like 10 to 12. I'm guessing it was like whoever got the highest score by the end of the weekend in each game.
Okay.
Did you ever hear anything about that, Shawn? About where what the pinball stuff was all about?
Not really.
Okay.
Other than I was very observant that every time I walked down there was always like there was always multiple repairmen fixing them.
Oh,
I was
yeah.
very impressed on the ball they were to fix.
Well, because
the
they were
broken
getting
stuff.
money.
Yeah.
Okay, so moving on. Let's see. Of course, the BattleTech had the giant blow up Omni-Mech.
Nice.
Yep. And then Shawn wanted a picture.
That's a horrible picture.
So Shawn, speaking of which, let's take this moment because this face is about everything you need to say about Shawn and BattleTech here. So was it Thursday? No, it was Friday, right?
Yeah,
It was Friday. Friday, I had Arkham Horror in the morning, which we'll get to. But then I had some free time. Was just planning on cruising the floor. Friday was going to be I'm going to go do a bunch of hit the floor and do videos with everybody. Except for I pulled out my camera and somewhere in my bag, the on switch had been hit and just completely drained the battery. So I was like, all right, that's not happening. So I was looking at Shawn. I was like, what do you want to do? And he's like, I was like, well, we could go do BattleTech Grinder because I was looking forward to that from last year. And he's like, I don't know how to play. And I'm like, they'll teach you. And I'm like, okay. So we went and played. First of all, it sucked because they changed the rules from last year, where last year, every time you got a kill in a mech, you got a salvage box. This year, it wasn't an automatic thing. It was only like they were giving them out for if like something epic happened, like you died in a spectacular way or someone killed you in a spectacular way, which there was still plenty of that, but they still weren't really handing them out. And so I was kind of like, at the end of it, I was talking with Mike and stuff because he was excited about doing it too. And then I told him about it, and we were just kind of like, well, that kind of ruins the point of playing. Like, if I'm just going to go play, I can do that at home. Like, the whole point of paying $8 to play was to risk the chance of getting, but I did manage to, in the time that we had, I managed to get all the way up to the 3rd level because we actually played the full 2 hours instead of starting off. Because started off and spawned in with my light mech right towards near the edge of the board, and then somebody rushes over to me. So like I'm worried about him getting behind me, so I back up. But I'm up against the edge of the board, and he rushes me and pushes me off the board, so I died immediately. And so then I immediately went up to the to the blue mech, the next level, and then I stayed in that until the end of the 2 hours, where I was almost dead. I had like 2 out of 3 engine hits, and I was gonna die, and like time was up, and the other guys were still playing, and I was like, "Look, man, let's just say that you hit me a 3rd time, so that I go ahead and get bumped up to the next level, so that because the thinking was if I come back, then I'll spawn in at because you show him these medals, and you start. That's the level you start at, and he didn't care because he got a kill out of it.
Mm-hmm.
So, but that was the only time we went to do the BattleTech. But Shawn, why don't you tell us what you thought about BattleTech?
It was a thing that I did. The involved rolling, it's too much for me. It's just too much, like looking on stuff. We were very lucky that we had a very knowledgeable group that were with us, including maybe a 9 or 10-year-old sitting next to me, who was simultaneously being very helpful but also luring me into destroying me at the same time, which was okay. I was fine with it, but they were very helpful in kind of guiding me and explaining it to me. But I think, just my ADHD brain can't handle the having to constantly go through stuff to figure it out. If I knew everything off by heart, like all those people did, then it would be okay. They the kid didn't even have to look at the paper; he just knew everything.
It just takes a couple plays. Like after a while, it just becomes pretty self-nature, But
unfortunately, I don't think it hooked me for that.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, you got to get hooked enough, and usually the IP is what gives you the hook. So if you've someone that's played the video games or read any of the books, that's what's usually the hook.
But it's not for me because when I was younger, I read like all the books, and I was like a competitive, the CCG back in the day.
Oh yeah.
In the late 90s, I was like a competitive BattleTech player with it. And because of that, I read all the books. I was like
Yeah.
reading all the books.
Was that the
So I
dark?
really
Was that the Dark Age one that WizKids did?
I don't remember. at
Was
this
it the
point. I can't-
HeroClix one?
No, it wasn't HeroClix. It was like in the CCG.
Well, they did a game that was sold as the same distribution model as a CCG that was called Dark Age.
No, this was way before that.
I didn't realize they had a BattleTech CCG. Shows you how much I know.
They did. Yeah, it was like late 90s, so right when Magic came out. Well, when Magic was picking up steam,
okay.
and then everybody was releasing different CCGs.
Yeah.
But it was one of the better ones actually.
So, speaking of BattleTech, I definitely picked up some loot. So once again, I spent over $100 at the Catalyst booth. I got myself a pair of mats because I really like their neoprene mats. But playing on the same one over and over and over again can be kind of boring. So I got just kind of. I'm glad I didn't get the one that we played on for the for the grinder, because there was one that had like very small canyons, like almost think like this like dunes, but more filled with mountains. So there was only like one hex sized paths between things, and that was terrible to play through. That was probably part of why things were so slow during the grinder, but then also just some generic like trees and stuff maps. Also picked up a couple of is my thing still freezing? I picked up a couple of packs. I got the Grey Death Legion. This is the one I was wanting. That's the exclusive for Barnes and Noble because it's got the K2 mech, or the K2 catapult, which is the catapult that has instead of having the LRM boxes on top, it has the PPCs. I don't know if you've seen that before, Philip. So the K2 is the Mad Cat without the arms, basically. And this one's got the two PPCs instead of the big missile boxes on top.
What are PPCs?
The particle projection cannons. They're like the biggest, baddest lasers. They do like 10 damage in one solid shot.
Gotcha.
And then I got their Legendary Mech Warriors box, which I think was an exclusive to the first Kickstarter. So like you could only get it on the website or in their booth. So actually, I probably need to go adjust my Kickstarter order or the backer kit order, because I think I got one of these in that, but it was there, and so it had a Timberwolf or a Mad Cat in it. So now I've upped my number of. Mike was like, "Are you trying to field a whole star of Timberwolves?" And I'm like, "Well, I'm not doing that."
It's not the worst idea I've heard.
Because I think I do have like 4 now. That I know, yeah. I think that makes number 4. So let's go back to see what else have we got here. Oh yeah, I got the Love Mutants. We went to the Catalyst booth. Mike and I went and checked that out. Of course, they had plenty of plushy mechs, which one of the guys was using as like an there's always those line ends here markers.
Oh, yep.
He was using that as the as the line ends here marker. Of course, she had like all the cosplay stuff. Thursday night, Mike and I went to, or Mike, Heather, and I, because there was a Renegade Media Night that I was going to, so that was at like 7, and so we needed to eat early. So it was like 5 o'clock. I'm like, ooh, we could probably get in on like a good restaurant meal. Or they wanted to have a sit down meal because the rest of the nights that both of them either had games, one of them had the games, and this was going to be like the only time that they had that. And I was like, hey, I get a chance to actually sit down and not have Steak and Shake because I had already had Steak and Shake number 2 by this point. So we tried to go to this other place that was doing.
I feel like I would have been at Steak and Shake like number 7 at this point.
Entirely possible. I posted a thread about. I started when I logged into the Steak and Shake app. I started Gen Con by seeing I had $2 in rewards. By the time I finished Steak and Shake on Sunday, I used the $6 total of rewards that I had earned to make my meal only like $2. But have you seen there's the old Spaghetti Factory? It's one of the restaurants that's kind of like 2 or 3 blocks back towards the train track, the Crown Plaza.
Does not sound familiar.
Okay, well, I'd passed it a couple times, but I'd never been in. So we were like, hey, let's go check this out. And it was so good. I want to go back. They had this Italian sausage that's probably like the best sausage I've ever had. And this is even including going to Fogo de Chao we were talking about beforehand. Yeah, so definitely we'll go back to that. I talked about that. We talked about the lining up ahead of time. Friday I had the Arkham Horror. I did it. I finally got into an Arkham Horror event, and as I was going through the demo hall, they had a lot of Star Wars Shatterpoint stuff, and the terrain for that was super cool and unique. So played the Arkham scenario, the blob that ate everything else. So in this scenario, you just have like a crap ton of locations, and like in the center is like this crater where the blob hits, and then all these like quarantined areas, and then there's like a research center on 2 of these, and like there's a generic blob card, and then over in the distance there would be a easel that had the total amount of health, and it was based on like how many people. So the more people you had in the event, the more the bigger health that you had on the blob. So our blob had like 885 health. And then there's like a clue count that's dependent on people of how, when you get enough clues, there's this heart that pops out and you can hit it and do extra damage to the blob. Really cool scenario, because if you take too long, the blob starts eating the locations and the board starts to shrink.
Mm-hmm.
So that was a lot of fun. Managed to get the last episode, we talked about the investigator that is basically the friendly blob.
Mm-hmm.
So I've got those cards now. I saw on eBay they were going for like 100. Somebody put them up for like $115, but I think I'll keep mine.
Yeah.
But that was tons of fun, and just the interactions with the other group. In fact, there's actually a card we didn't activate it, but one of the cards was called Main Street, and you could actually do an action to swap tables with somebody. So like you would go to their board and they would come to your board. We didn't use it, but it was just funny that was there as an option. And then you get down to the end and everyone's like getting really excited because like we're getting down to the game, or our time is about to be up, because there's only so many hours that they have this booked. And like it's starting getting down to the double digits, and then it started getting down to like 40 and 30, and they're like live updating it. Like basically they're just calling it out, and people are just like, we just did 10 or 5 more damage or 2 more damage or whatever. And it got down to there's these countermeasures that you start the game with, and I think we started with like 17 or 11 or something like that. And basically on this card you can go there and use them for like healing yourself or getting resources. So we had spent them all really fast, but there's another card where you can generate them. And we managed to, like, at the last moment, another table had managed to generate like 7. And when you get to the crater in the middle, you can spend countermeasures to just deal direct damage to the blob. And so by the end of it, you'd start seeing people like being like -2 countermeasures and 6 damage, and then another table be like, we just did the same thing, we just did it also, and then finally it just died. Like at the very end, everyone's like, just get rid of all the countermeasures and let's just deal the damage, and then we won.
There you go.
So, but I had played, one of the guys I had played with, they had lost the night before, so it was not always an assured thing. There's the thing I got. This is like kind of in the middle of us playing. Let's see here. Yeah. So it wasn't slam packed, but it was kind of hard to get a good angle that had everybody that was playing. But most of these 3 tables that you can see, there was a good solid like 75% of them were filled with people playing this Arkham scenario.
All right.
Oh, then that was when we did the BattleTech grinder. So you can see Shawn's arm over here in the background. This is the map I was talking about, where it was like So you
Oh
can't,
yeah, like
you
one hex.
yeah, you can't see. These are like, so these are all like level 0, and these are all like level 5. So they completely hide mechs. So unless you had
Okay.
jump jets, which I didn't, then you were pretty much screwed in like trying to have to do the long walk all the way through here, and you couldn't like just go out to the green and move around because like this green is like a level 3, and you couldn't without jump jets. You can't make that crossover.
Couldn't get out there
Until
Okay,
finally, I asked one of the other guys there. I was like, "Can we just say that this is the same terrain?" Because like I had spent like 5 turns not doing anything but just trying to get to people. And they're like, yeah, that's fine. And so I finally moved over here, and that was when I kind of engaged in this battle that you can't even see everybody because they're off in different corners. So let's see what's next.
Do the mechs have standoff weapons?
What do you mean?
So like like mortars.
Oh, like indirect stuff?
Yeah, indirect fire kind of stuff.
There is a rule for that. So, but that you have to have another mech spot you basically.
Okay, gotcha.
Is
So you
what
still have to have somebody's got line of sight.
Yeah.
And feeding you information.
So
Okay.
if you say you have a group of, so if you have 2 mechs or you're playing on a team, you can, if somebody else can see them, they can spot you. And if you have a weapon that's in range, I think it's only for like missiles basically.
Okay.
You can bomb them, but both you get an extra +1 to your what you got to roll, or like a minus basically to your roll, and they get a minus to theirs as well. So it's not for nothing, but it is possible. Let's just get past here. I just started then going.
Spelljammer.
Yep. So this is the Beetle and Grimm's. They're the people that do the really luxury versions of all the different adventures. Like I'm pretty sure this is like $400. But you get like minis of some of the big monsters. You've got like a huge maps of the ships, and like a lot of extra thematic handouts and such to really kind of spruce up your gameplay.
Mm-hmm.
So let's see, what else did I look? They had a bunch of different Space Hulk thing, and so there was a guy dressed up as a Space Hulk Adeptus Mechanicus guy, which I thought was really cool. And then we got to Star Wars Unlimited, which means we got a new video here because we got lots to talk about there.
All right, so this is Star Wars Unlimited. It's a fast-paced game where the whole point of the game is to defeat your opponent's base. We each have a 30 hit point base, so essentially the first person to deal 30 damage will win the game. We each also have a leader that we get to represent an iconic Star Wars character. So I'm Luke Skywalker, you're Darth Vader. Nice epic showdown. Leaders start the game in play as a non-unit. They kind of direct their forces from behind the scenes for a while, and then eventually they can come into play on the battlefield themselves and be big, powerful units. They're double-sided. So later in the game, they'll flip over and get to enter the battlefield themselves and fight. And they're quite powerful, so it'll be a pretty epic moment when that happens. But yeah, the easiest way to deal damage to your opponent's base is through units. These decks are full of a bunch of units. I can show you a few of them here just to give an example. A nice classic X-Wing. So every card will have a cost in the upper left. It'll be a yellow number. In order to play a card, you'll have resources in your resource row. You'll simply exhaust resources, ready resources, you go to the big yellow number, 2, to actually play the card. Every unit, we have 2 arenas. That's another kind of cool feature with Unlimited. We have the space arena and ground arena. Every unit will have a little thing above their name telling you which arena they belong to, space or ground. So whenever you play a card or unit, you put it in its appropriate arena. They always end play exhausted. So take a round from them to ready up and attack. We also have, for example, look at ground unit there. So got a little ground above it. So the most easy way to deal damage is with units attacking. As an action, you can declare an attack with a unit by writing units onto your opponent's base directly. If that's the case, the unit will deal damage and goes forward right to your base. Nice and simple. The opponent has no ways to defend naturally. I'll give you an example of combat against other units, since that's a big focus of the game. Say you have that in your deck for some reason. I can declare an attack against your base like I did earlier, or instead attack another unit in the corresponding arena. It doesn't matter if it's ready or exhausted. If that's the case, we'll deal damage equal to our power to each other. Damage is persistent, it'll stay on there unless a card ability heals it. So simply throw damage on there. Once the unit has damage on it equal to or greater than its hit points, the unit will be defeated. You'll simply leave play, put it to your discard pile. We also have events. They're one-time effects. As an action, you play it, pay the cost, do the ability, and have the event in your discard pile. During the gameplay, instead of taking turns separately, we'll kind of take turns at the same time, one action at a time, back and forth. So there's lots of interaction. The most common actions are playing a card, attacking with the units, using an action ability in play, like each of our leaders has an action to use, or taking the initiative. This is important. Whoever has initiative will start the action phase with the first action each round. So that's an action to take it. Once you take it, you can no longer take actions that round. You're forced to pass the rest of your actions. And only one person can take the initiative each round. We'll let you start with this game. And then the last thing you do is pass. If you don't want to do something, you can pass. And your opponent has a chance to do something. If the opponent also passes or takes the initiative, the action phase will end. And we'll move on to a regroup phase. Each round consists of 2 phases, the action phase, regroup phase. During the regroup phase, you'll draw 2 cards, the top 2 cards of your deck. Then you may resource any card in your hand into your resource row. Then you'll ready every card to play. Once the regroup phase is done, you'll go on to the next round, which starts with the action phase. Then whoever has the initiative will take the first action of the round, and we'll alternate taking actions during the action phase until we both pass, and back to the regroup phase, and so on until somebody wins the game. One unique action is called an epic action. Once per game, you can use your epic action. So we each have that in our leaders. Darth Vader says if you control 7 or more resources, you can deploy them. That means you can, once you have 7 resources in play, you don't need to exhaust them at all. It's just if you control them. So they can all be exhausted. You can still take this action to deploy them and enter play in the ground arena, so you see the ground unit. And leaders are also special. They enter play ready. Most units will enter play exhausted. The leaders are special. They're really powerful. They'll come and play ready to do battle pretty much immediately. And you can see Darth Vader's stats are pretty huge, a 5'8". You'll make an impact. Some cards also have abilities on top of that, like on attack. As soon as you declare him as attacker, you can trigger his on attack ability, deal 2 damage to any unit in play. Resources, I guess to start the game, we'll shuffle our decks completely, draw 6 cards. You may take 1 mulligan. If you do, you'll shuffle your 6 cards back into your deck, draw 6 new cards. And once you decide to mulligan or not, you'll choose 2 cards from your hand to put into play as resources. So then you'll have 4 cards remaining. So you kind of start the game a little bit of head start. Instead of 1 resource, you start with 2.
And normally you're allowed to put 1 resource down each turn?
During the regroup phase, you may resource 1 card from your hand. So you'll slowly start building up to play more bigger, powerful cards. And eventually you'll get 7 to deploy Vader. I'll eventually get to 6 to deploy Luke, hopefully, once the game ends before then.
Yeah, so there you go. That was unfortunately not the best video because remember I had said that my camera had died, so I was just using my phone. I had the recorder on me, and I was able to get some decent audio, but the video was not the great because it was just my camera kind of like shaking and holding it off to the side, trying to keep it still. So, Shawn, you played. And that was from, was it Jeremy? He was one of the designers. So the other problem was he was very quiet when he talked, and we're in the middle of the demo hall. So it was like, come on, man. So that was just the introduction I clipped out. I have the whole 30 minutes that they played a game of Star Wars Unlimited. I'm going to clip that out as a separate video and put it up onto the YouTube channel for people to see. But Shawn, what was your opinion of the game? What'd you think?
I really liked it. Yeah, it very much reminded me of Star Realms. I played a lot of Star Realms back in the day, like a CCG version of Star Realms. I really like the space and the ground portion of it. That's really neat. The whole and similar to Versus, I guess, but I just enjoyed this a lot more in Versus.
Yeah.
I really enjoyed that you're doing the same thing. You're discarding a card to become a resource, just generic resource. There's no specific resources, but you really have to kind of take into consideration what you're discarding at any point to become the resource. Because at least for my cards, I was like, they all seem like they would be useful. So every time I had to really consider, okay, would this help me in 3 turns? Do I have 3 turns to do it? Can I just get rid of it now? You really have to navigate that, and that's what I really enjoyed about it. It's very straightforward. And I'm sure there's other rules. Like, these are demo decks. You can even see that they're written on every card demo. So I'm guessing they're very specific to like get you a feel for it. So I'm sure there's other cards in there that they'll have that are a little bit more complicated, but everything about the demo itself was very straightforward and to the point. I love that like you can do those epic moves and then like you bring out your character and they're super they're super overpowered. So that was fun. Yeah, I enjoyed everything about it. I just really hope the Fantasy Flight supports it now.
I even asked that the guy, because I was like, you guys don't exactly have the greatest track record with competitive games. But it sounds like, I don't know, if like part of, I mean, it feels kind of reductive to say so, but a part of me feels like this is the spiritual successor to Star Wars Destiny, just without the dice, because the dice was kind of the limiting aspect of Destiny, where they really needed to hit a critical mass to make that game profitable, and they did in the beginning, and then it dropped off really quickly. And then also they were changed hands and at a point where they were trying to be as profitable as possible. So it seems like this might be a better time, better place for it, because they're in different. The Asmodee's in a different place. They're owned by different people. That they're not exactly trying to squeeze every drop of profit out to where it might be better. So maybe it's in a better position.
Well, hang on. Asmodee doesn't own Asmodee at this moment?
Yeah.
Okay.
Well, it's Embracer Group.
Okay, gotcha. So maybe next year, Asmodee will own Asmodee.
Yeah.
Okay.
I'm hoping the fact it's coming out on the heels of Lorcana will also motivate them a little bit more to make money, to actually support things a little bit.
I already saw some people talk about, like, if they're planning for a Gen Con release of this, which I don't think they are. Not. They said if they were planning for a Gen Con release, then they need to learn from Lorcana's mistakes. But they said they were going to try and do 3 sets next year, so I would imagine maybe they will release a set at Gen Con, but this seems like a spring release to me. But they didn't fully say. Probably because honestly, they really should try for like November this year. Would probably be they hit that December point, especially because I mean there's been discussions about Lorcana maybe is getting hard to get shipped to stores and distribute and stuff. If they could kind of sneak away some of that fire, then they could be in a really good position.
I was talking to someone who owns a card shop, and they ordered like 25 initially, and they got allocated 4 booster boxes
of Lorcana.
So it seems to be a thing all over. Yeah, so that could potentially be something that they could have done, but they probably don't have enough time to kind of get it going now that they know the order's just going to be there. But that would be a great idea.
My problem with this, and I guess it's just a problem in general for all card games, is anytime I've played Star Wars CCGs or any of any type, a randomized booster, I hate it because it's like you got to have a good light side deck and a good dark side deck, and you never get the cards you want for the deck you want. Like, if you're working on a good dark side deck, you always get light side cards and vice versa. But I guess that's kind of the point of a CCG, is to get you to buy more.
And I think it, like, I know for me, kind of like we did, I'm sure you'll talk about the Magic thing. Like, my whole purpose with CCGs is not to get into the like, I don't want to get into like opening up. Like, buy some starter decks and treat it as a board game, or like a card game where I don't have to do it. So I understand that point totally, but I see it as more like, I'll buy like some starter decks or some pre-constructed product, and that'll be it for me until another set comes out, and then I'll do the same thing, and I'll go back to them.
It'd be like, maybe, you know, if we're playing on a regular, if like a group is playing regularly, then maybe like on that night I'll buy a booster pack, you know, just to kind of see what new cards I get, kind of thing. Or maybe like buy a box when a new set comes out to open them, because there is that kind of the opening thrill. Like, I remember when Chloe and I used to like pre-order a booster box to share when a new Magic set come out, and there was always that thrill of just sitting down and going through all the packs. So, I mean, there is something to that. But yeah, it does seem like a solid game, though. Let's see. Oh, got some other cards here. Yoda, Chewbacca, R2-D2. Yep. Oh, speaking of Magic. So I finally found the 40K Commander decks for under $60. So
Nice.
like some of them were even like $45. I managed to get this Imperium deck for $50. And then I was like...
So at first glance of just whipping my eyes across the screen real quick, I swore that said Inquisitor Gygax.
Nice. So I wanted to get it, and then Shawn, when we had gone to that Good Game Store, and I first saw them, and they were at like $65 there, which at the time was also a good price, because I've seen them for like $70, $80, and it was like, I'm definitely not paying that. But so we had mentioned, and he had looked at the Lord of the Rings Commander decks, and so it was kind of like because we were looking for maybe something that we could just, because Joe, especially after the Versus, we had played that, we had this kind of card game itch for something we could just kind of pull out and throw out at some point and play during the weekend. And so I bought the 40K Commander deck for the Imperium. Originally, I was going to get the Chaos one, but I'm really glad I got the Imperium one, just because there were so many cards. Like, I know this guy, and I know this guy, and I know this thing. But I managed to convince Shawn to get the Lord of the Ring. Which you got the? Did you get the Riders of Rohan or the Elven Council one?
The Riders of Rohan.
Yeah. So, which sucked, because there was like a guy there that actually knew how to play Magic, and we were buying them from the same booth, and like I bought my deck, and then he was trying to figure out which deck to buy, and he looks at the Magic guy that was just like talking it up. He's like, oh, I love this and that and that. And he's like, what deck should I buy to beat that one? And he's like, oh, you want the Riders of Rohan, because you just got to play super aggressive and you'll be fine, which turns out he was right.
He was correct.
He was correct. Spoiler alert. Mike showed us later on, he had tried out this game called Sky Team, where it's like basically it's a cooperative 1v1 co-op game where you're trying to work together to land a plane, and you have to like the altitude slowly going down, and you have to manage the angle of bank and make sure you have enough actions to lower the flaps and lower the speed and lower the gear and stuff. It looked really cool. The components and the way the board interacted was really neat.
Is there like an action movie drama aspect where, like, you know, the pilots are unconscious, now you got to land the plane, everyone's gonna die?
No, it's just a limited co-op. Like, you use these dice, you place these dice on this board, but you roll the dice in secret, and you can't talk to your opponent. Like, you can talk before you roll the dice of like what your overall strategy is going to be, but once you roll the dice, there's no talking, and you just have to place and try and help your partner out in between each round. So,
okay,
I think.
Go ahead.
I think Sky Team I think Sky Team probably had the most buzz of any game, non-Warcana game there.
I don't
and
know.
people
Sky
kind
Team. It was one of those kind of
I heard
sleeper.
lots.
I heard, but distilled. You want to talk about distilled? No, I think I have a picture of it later. We could talk about it then.
Grab it then.
But yeah, but you're right. There was a lot of buzz about Sky Team, especially that there was no like pre-con buzz. But let's see what else we got.
Well, you could the smart people pre-ordered it in advance.
But it was
they
another
got there.
It was another game that sold out really quickly.
Yeah.
So Shawn, you want to talk about the LARP?
Oh yeah, in exchange for playing BattleTech with Chris.
No,
or it was the other way around.
It was probably the other way around. It was the week before Gen Con, I got a text from Shawn that was like, "Hey, you want to do a LARP with me?" And I said, "What kind of LARP?" Because that could change the answer. And
a cheap LARP.
He brought up there's this Chicago group that does a bunch of LARPs. It's not True Dungeon. It kind of felt like cheaper True Dungeon, to be honest, but it was still like just as fun. But they had these like all these events, and they were like $16 an event, and I was like, I don't know if I want to pay that. But there was one I saw that was like $4, and I was like, oh, that's cool. And I wonder why this one's $4. It turns out you get to play the monsters in the dungeon for somebody else's run. So now, Shawn, you can take over from here talking about it.
Yeah, which was okay with me. I like to when I go to Gen Con, like last time I did like a juggling class that I went there. Like I'd like to do like one new thing that I haven't done. Although it turns out because I did BattleTech, I did 2 new things here. But for the LARP, we were in like different rooms and we were different monsters. Here we are a couple of sexy fire elementals. We were fire elementals. We were cannibal pigs. We were
kobolds.
Yeah. I don't know. I think we were one more thing too.
You were like a military deserter at one point.
That's right, because we finished early. So yeah, the groups would come through. They would have there would be some stronger level ones who've done it before and who've built up, and you just kind of follow the lead of the person from the group, who's the main monster, the main villain in there, and you're just attacking people with swords.
Yeah,
kind of. But it was
quickly found out I am not in shape for this because after the first time, and also the room we were in, it was not very ventilated very well. So by the end of this, I felt like I had gotten a workout. In fact, if there's a gym that would just market itself as a LARP, like come work out in the air conditioning, and also, like your workout being this LARP thing, I think I'd probably be like fit as a fiddle.
Yep. And yeah, the next day, we were walking the vendor hall, and I said, and Mike was there, and I was like saying to him, I was trying to figure out before why my legs are hurting so much. I feel like I just ran up like 30 flights of stairs. And I was like, oh, it's the LARP. That's it. Because I'm an old man now and I can't do it.
Yeah. But your XP carries over between different sessions and even between different years. Because one of the ones we did, they were super high level and just spent the whole time throwing spells at us the entire time, which that was annoying.
Push.
Yeah, they just kept I think it's you could yell whatever. You had a certain set of spells, and as long as you had a little ball of pack of sandbag, you could say whatever spell that you had prepared. And so one guy just kept doing push and just kept throwing them. And whenever you got hit with a push, you just had to turn around and walk to the nearest wall and then come back. So you'd start to come back and then get hit with another one and then have to go. But what? Next year, I would be willing to do the actual heroes part, because getting the whole leveling up and being able to use, that was half of it. I want to be able to use spells.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, not to say that it wasn't fun playing with all the swords and stuff, but having the experience or, being able to level up and that sort of thing, that would have been cool. Especially if we could get a group together of all of us to go at the same time. I think that would be a lot of fun.
Mm-hmm.
What do you think, Phil? You want to come LARP with us?
Hell yeah.
Catch Phil eating stuff. So they also had the standard balloon guy That's apparently it's a different balloon person because I saw some people making comments that I don't like this balloon guy sucks. I like the other balloon guy. And I was like, I don't care, but I think this looks super dope. They built like
It does look pretty awesome.
a lunar lander full of or made out of balloons. There's even
I think
like
this was the nicest one.
yeah,
Like I saw that, and my only comment, I was like, wasn't it a creature all the previous years we've
Yeah.
gone?
I think it has.
Like, that
Like
was-
it's usually the dragon. I think they usually do
Yeah.
Guinevere the dragon.
Yeah, like that was my only comment.
But I kinda like the
you built
diverse-
a friggin' lunar lander. Like,
I
that's
kind of
awesome.
like that it was different though, because it made me pay attention to it instead of kind of walking by it. Like there's even a little balloon Earth here in the background, and then the stars,
Yeah.
and then
Yeah,
space.
I mean, that was pretty.
Yeah, like that was pretty.
I saw a TikTok of the destruction of Cardhalla.
Oh yeah,
That's cool.
there were so many comments people making of next year how much of Cardhalla is going to be Lorcana cards.
Lorcana cards.
I tried out the Gen Con beer. It was really nice. It was a English honey ale or something like that. It was a little bit sweeter, so that was kind of cool. Let's see. Renegade was selling the new Werewolf the Apocalypse book, which is really cool because apparently I know not much about the World of Darkness, but apparently the werewolves have always been kind of like reflections of the Earth kind of piece, and they really play into kind of global warming into this one. Being like, well, like Gaia is dying, so it's like reaching out, and then you're feeling all this additional rage and aggression because of how much damage is being done to the environment, which I think was kind of like a cool way of tying in all these disasters, but in a way that like made sense and it's not like forced in, you know?
Yeah, that makes sense.
But it just kind of makes it reflect. And it's funny because they even say on the book that's like, because they've gotten hit in the past with people being like, this isn't the hunter or this isn't the vampire that I grew up with or blah blah blah. They're like, if you're familiar with previous editions, this 5th edition is a reimagining. It is not a continuation. You can even call it a reboot if you prefer. Yeah, and that's right. Russell Beetle said, a friend of mine said the Renegade booth might as well have been the Hasbro booth. That's because they've got so much licensed stuff from Hasbro now. Like they've got the Robo Rally and the Acquire and Diplomacy, but then they've also got for the RPGs, they've got the Power Rangers RPG stuff and the Transformers and the G.I. Joe and My Little Pony. So they got a lot of licensed properties there now. And I was kind of sad. Getting back to the hall. I managed to get a copy of Robo Rally to try out.
Nice.
But it ended up in a bag that wasn't sealed very well. And when we came into DC, it was pouring down rain. And so it got crumpled and smushed and wet. It's dried now. Luckily, the components are fine, but this is going to bother, you know me, this is going to bother the crap out of me. Like it won't affect a review of the game, but it just annoys me that there's the rest of this box is pristine. And if I had left it wrapped, it would have been fine. But I was like trying to ditch weight by like punching out stuff. Mm-hmm. So that was kind of sucky. Let's see, what else did I get? We're gonna transition. So we already talked about the 40K deck, so I could put that away. Then there was all the different like die for like signing up to like every email list that's like imaginable. And I got like somebody had a pin. One of the guys that was somebody, I don't remember who it was. They had different pins for all the classes in Arkham Horror. So when I was in their group for the Blob, and I managed to get a Guardian pin because I was playing a Guardian character. Let's see. I already talked about that. Oh, I bought myself a shirt. I love the T Fury shirts, like the ones that like today's going to be a good day, and it's a dinosaur with the volcano exploding in the background. Do you know? You know what I'm talking about? So I got this shirt. That's the distance raptor divided by time raptor equals velociraptor.
Velociraptor.
So, love that. Let's see. Last or a couple episodes ago, we had Corey and Jimmy on to talk about Dice Theme Park, and they had a deluxe add-on box, which I was like, "Ooh, what's that?" And it comes with trains, like actual trains.
Hey, they made the Velociraptor a little more biologically accurate.
Oh yeah. But they made the actual the rails that would shuffle the dice to your park were just cards, but now they made actual train miniatures that you put the dice in, and you could like slide them over.
Cool.
And then of course it came with more cards and more hexes and stuff. I saw it and I was like, how much is that? Because I was thinking it was like $25-$30, whatever, and they were like $10, and I was like, sold. Because I will definitely enjoy that. Let's see what else we got here. Do you remember there was that unfold thing that we were looking at when we were doing the preview?
Yeah.
They were, as I was at that booth getting that game, Alley Cat Games was also, they had these unfold promos. So I haven't looked into it too much, but I think it's basically like an escape room type thing.
Oh, yep. Okay.
You're holding a demo version of a tabletop quest in the form of a fold-out envelope. Don't unfold it immediately. First, open the cover and read the rules on page A. So then also, so I was talking about getting games for the for the giveaway pile. And I had talked about before the show meeting Rusty Beetle and his wife. So he had this like level 7 invasion game, and he's like, "Do you want it?" And I was like, "I'm fine, but go ahead and send it my way because I'll throw it in the review pile or in the giveaway pile." So that's another game in there that's still in shrink. Also, I got one of the lanyard, the badge holder things. Because just having a spot to just put the tickets in and easily remove them, it's just so nice. Yep. And then at the end of the con, I was using it for like putting in business cards because I went to I didn't ask for a whole lot of review copies, but I went to a lot of different booths to get like business cards from people to try and get new people to come on the show. So that's hopefully that'll be good stuff in the upcoming future. Let's see. We've still got a couple. Let's talk about Warcrow. So Warcrow is before I flip over to the screen, if you follow me on TikTok and I talked about it here, there was a game that came out for Corvus is the people that do the Infinity sci-fi game. It's a company from Spain. But they have a upcoming game that I did a talk about last year. That they did a Kickstarter for. I think it comes out the beginning of next year. It's called Warcrow Adventures, and it was a dungeon delving game that had like an app driven, think like your Mansions of Madness style or Descent, that sort of thing. Well, that was to kind of get people interested in their Warcrow tabletop game because they were going to do they've done the sci-fi stuff. Now they want to do the fantasy, and so here. We've got a demo of, or not demo, but just a showcase of how the Warcrow tabletop game will work, and just as a small scale there.
All right, so this is Warcrow, Corvus Belli's skirmish fantasy battle game. It is a 2-player game. We've got a faction on this side, the Northern Tribes. They're composed of 2 different groups of orcs. And then on the other side, we've got the Homogeny. They're a group composed of mostly humans, but also a few elves and dwarves. The game is a I go, you go format. We run a series of rounds, and then we score objectives, and then the game continues on the action.
So when you say I go, you go, you mean each individual model, not like...
No, I activate a unit, you activate a unit.
Raspy voice Chris there was like the first thing I talked to in the day.
We go back and forth like that, yeah. It's not my whole army activates, your whole army activates. We have basically 2 different types of units. We have characters who have a basic card like this. It'll be vertical, and this character you're Frostfire Herald. She can only act on her own. She's just a lone character wandering around casting spells. And then we have characters that can be attached to units, and they have a dual part card. The top section represents them acting alone, and then if they're attached to a unit, we just tuck their card right under a unit card, and they provide certain benefits to that unit based on what's on the bottom. For instance, we have a unit of bucklermen here. It's 4 models, and they have attached to them a war surgeon who is going to do a little bit of damage mitigation to keep that unit around a little longer. By herself, she would do some active healing, but attached to the squad, she's passively healing that squad and keeping them on the table. On the other side, we have a leader character. They have an evoker who is helping buff the orc squads and preventing the opponent from acting against them. Basically gives them a fear level, and then the opponent's going to have to make a willpower check to attack them. And then the unit they have is hunters, and they have attached to them an elder who is, instead of giving a passive buff to that squad, he's actually adding combat power to the squad. So different units attached to squads will change them in different ways and adjust how they work. So as we activate characters, they get 2 actions. They can either move or attack, basically, at this point in the demo. To move a unit or a squad, we have a measuring tool. The move value is represented as strides, and it'll be a dashed number like this, 2, 3. So the unit will advance according to the widget, front to back, the first measurement, and then they can move off in a different direction if you'd like, and go 2. So this allows us to adjust the speed of the unit and the maneuverability. Once the leader of a unit has moved, the rest of the unit just follows up, and they end within 2 strides of that leader. So you're moving that unit all as one block and not measuring individually. So then this unit it has the ability to activate twice, and it can just activate again. Try to get up here on this objective. Each time a unit activates, they take an activation token. The units have a morale stat that determines how many times they can activate before they get stressed, and then cannot activate until we come around to the end of the round and reset everybody. They'll move up, and then the orcs are going to look to charge. And so in order to enter melee, you have to perform a charge move. A charge move takes your whole activation. You get to move up and then perform 1 attack. So the orcs are going to attempt to charge. We'll measure the leader. 2.
Now, is that based on their movement? Is their charge distance?
Yes. One of the quick ways we can calculate that, orcs are a 4-2, so that's a total of 6. You've got the distance of the base as 2 strides, and then in the middle of their move, and then at the end is 10. So as long as we're 10 strides away, we know we can charge. Gotcha. The rest of the unit piles in here. And then we fight the combat. So the orcs, we're going to reference their unit card. We have a chart here that determines the number of dice you roll based on the number of models you have left. The orcs have 4 models or more. That means they're going to roll a red die and 2 orange die. They have a built-in success, and then their attachment gives them another built-in success. The bucklermen have a choice here at this point. They can either roll defense, which would be 3 blue dice, or they can choose to retaliate, which is going to cause them to become stressed, and they would roll 2 red and a yellow die. We're going to have them retaliate. So the orcs are going to roll. They're going to get 5 successes. Doesn't look good for the bucklermen. And the bucklermen are going to get 3 successes, plus they get 2 exclamation. We have another concept called switches. It's common to our Aristea game as well, that all these other symbols are available for different units if they have them to activate different abilities. The Bucklermen have an ability, if they get 2 exclamation points, can turn that into a shield. So even when they're retaliating, they have the potential to block some of that incoming damage. So 3 damage coming through to the orcs, 5 coming through from the orcs to the humans. The humans block 1 with their defense. The War Surgeon allows us to attempt to mitigate that damage. She's going to roll 1 orange die. On a success, she'll block a damage. She does. So we're down to 4 damage, or 3 damage coming through to the Bucklermen, and 3 damage coming through to the orcs. We then reference the number of wounds we have. Bucklermen only have 2 wounds, so they're going to lose 1 model, and they will take a wound on the unit. And the orcs have 3 wounds, which means they will also lose a model. At this point, we need to make a willpower check for each unit. The orcs have a willpower of 1 orange die. All we're looking for is a success here. And they're good, they're going to stick with it. The humans, however, their leader has an aura that spreads his leadership to the entire unit, the entire army. So his willpower is 2. They're going to get to use his willpower, and they also succeed, so that combat continues.
What if they had failed?
They would fall back their basic movement, and they would have to rally to get back into combat. So once that's done, our counter ticks over 1 more. We go back and we each get to activate another model. That continues back and forth until we get to the 3rd round, at which point we determine who scores this objective. Each unit has a conquest value that is going to allow us to compare the orcs versus the Bucklermen and determine who's going to control that objective. Bucklermen are a 2, plus their attachment gives them a +1. Orcs, however, are only a 1 with a +1 from their attachment. So the Bucklermen would actually hold this objective at the end of the round.
No matter how many guys are still in the unit?
Well, so that does change as it goes down. If the Bucklermen go down to 1 model, he's not going to be able to control that objective. And then other units will possibly, drop earlier, depending on the unit. So that's the basics.
Awesome. When does this release?
Gen Con next year.
So there you go. That was Warcrow from Corvus Belli. And we're getting pretty late. So I've got a little bit more that we'll do here before we cut everybody loose here. Shawn, any interest in playing some minis games, or are you minied out after BattleTech?
A little mini break. I think Minis and I need a little bit of time apart to reevaluate how we feel about each other.
I'll just talk to your daughter and tell her that you need to get into more minis games.
See, right now, Shawn loves minis, but he's not in love with minis. Exactly. There we go.
I love minis to look. I like looking at them.
Yeah,
love checking them out. But then, that next step in our relationship hasn't quite happened yet.
So, Philip, you might be interested in this one. Remember, I'm pretty sure we talked about this on the show. But Freelancers, this was one of the other, the limited review copies that I got. Freelancers, a Crossroads game. This is a Crossroads game from Plaid Hat Game, where it's the kind of, let's see, the first one was Dead of Winter, with the Crossroads cards. That would to change the game up depending on who was in play at the specific time. And then there was Gen 7, and then there was one, I think it was like Forgotten Waters. But then they made this one, and it's themed around an adventuring party. And I know we talked about on the show, because I remember saying that's what they should have started with, because that's what seems to be, that it makes the most sense for it to be this kind of game. So I saw it there. It was selling like hotcakes. But not only that, I also managed to get the designer to talk about it.
So this is Freelancers, a Crossroads game, our latest game in the Crossroads line at Plaid Hat Games. In Freelancers, the humanity has wiped itself out. probably, hopefully not in the near future, but perhaps maybe in the near future. And the only thing humanity's left behind is a bunch of trash and a broken gig economy. And from the rubble of that hellscape rises a group of trolls and goblins and bug people and elves and dwarves and fantasy creatures who sort of inherit our world and are trying to sort it all out. In the game, you play as freelancers. You play as adventuring characters. They're not heroes. They're not good guys or bad guys. They're just sort of guys who are available to do whatever you need them to do. And you sort of work your way through these app-enhanced, what's the word? App-enhanced, morally ambiguous adventures. Scenarios, yeah. Each scenario is supposed to evoke the feeling of the highlights of like an entire RPG campaign. You can stop and save at any time, or you can play in one sitting. Generally, 2 hours to 3 hours is the vibe that people have been giving us. You can definitely play some of the scenarios in 90 minutes if you're not like messing around and everybody knows how to play. It's a game about where you're going to make your own characters by bashing together 2 different character sheets. You're going to choose a species, you're going to choose a job, and then those 2 things are going to dynamically sort of inform each other. They're going to inform the narrative events that can occur in the game, because you're going to enter that stuff in the app, and the app is only going to pull things that are relevant to the characters that are in the game currently. Makes things always sort of replayable, and it gives everybody their little... it has like a heavy bag building element that is more on the board game side of things. So as you're sort of exploring the map, moving from point to point, or wasting time trying to pick a lock whenever you take too long to do something, you'll pull a token from the bag, and that's going to potentially increase the risk in the game and increase the threat, make the whole game harder. And that's the vibe of the game. That's kind of the elevator pitch.
So at this point, I'm asking like what are some of the mechanics involved in the game. So he's got the mic though, so it didn't pick up as much.
Yeah. So pretty frequently you're going to be working your way through these 5 different maps we have. Each map has various events that can occur at them and various different choices they make. As the players play the game more and more, they're going to sort of learn how to interact with these spaces and get the most from them sort of strategically. But generally speaking, the game mostly takes place in sort of a theater of the minds kind of RPG style, where the app is talking to you, describing a room, describing your character's options, and you're choosing one. However, sometimes there's big important moments several times per map where it's going to bring you down to a more microscopic level on the location book. So in our previous game, Forgotten Waters, you spend the whole thing in the location book, whereas here, it's only when something sort of exciting or important is happening, and the rest of the time, we're just moving forward. So, when you're on the location book, it kind of turns into a little light sort of almost worker placement, action selection kind of thing, where you choose what sounds interesting to your player. You get 45 seconds to make the decision. It's not a big mechanical decision. You just look at the symbols on it and hope for the best based on what you think your character would do thematically in the situation. This is available now. It debuted here at Gen Con. Pre-orders should be arriving at people's houses during Gen Con. We tried to time it right. And it's debuting here, and it's done really well for us. We sold out on the first day and got an emergency refill from our distributor. So we got more available. Awesome. Thank you so much.
So what do you think, Philip? You're interested in all? Uh-oh. Do we lose Philip? I see his shoulder.
No, I heard you. I have to listen through YouTube.
Oh, right. You were the delay, so you were still hearing part of the
can't.
video.
Yeah.
Gotcha. I'll work on that one of these days.
I don't know. I'm not interested.
Well, it's one of those, do I need to try and make sure you're around when we play it?
It didn't. I mean, I do like theater of the mind stuff.
Yeah. So one last thing that I will talk about. Actually, before I do that, Shawn, do you want to go into your distilled that you got?
Other than that, I got Distilled, the all-in Kickstarter of Distilled. I was in line for a friend to pick a friend up the $20 expansion or whatever, and then this woman behind me kept talking about the game and just talked me into buying it. And I was like, oh, I'll just get the gameplay thing. And I was like, but I'm at Gen Con, I should just get the whole thing. So then I just bought the whole thing. So it was like the game, the expansion, shot glasses, coasters, and then all the blinged out stuff and play mats.
This was the other
and
one
then
I heard a
immediately-
lot of people talking about at Gen Con was Distilled.
And then immediately had buyer's remorse. But now the buyer's remorse
Oh,
is
no.
gone. I'm looking forward to it. I think it might
Okay.
be closing tomorrow. So, yeah. It's Gen Con, you know.
By the way, Phil, I was thinking of you. I found a nice. They had these flasks that had the different classes on them, and I thought it was appropriate that
Nice.
the barbarian and the bard were next to each other because the two people I could see having flasks with their class on them would be you and Jimmy.
Uh-huh.
So, and then I have one more loot piece I want to talk about because I this transitions because he talked about kind of the one thing he had buyer's remorse about, and I kind of got a little naughty myself with a big purchase. So you know how like you got your sword one year when you're like, I've been seeing the sword every year and just like finally like this is a year. So that's the way I was with this. This is Dispelled Dice. So it's a smaller company, although you wouldn't know that by the booth they had, but they make custom resin dice. And they make some of the most beautiful dice I've ever seen. They had a booth set up that looked like a jeweler stand kind of thing. And they had like quote tastings is what they called. So this is called how does it Dampier Feast. It's supposed to be kind of like vampire themed, but just check out these beauties right here.
Those are gorgeous.
Yeah, I'll pull it back actually so they're actually in frame. No!
Don't drop them, they're so expensive.
Yeah, they are, but uh-oh. The camera, I just heard the camera click. There it goes. It's back on now. But yeah, they're just so, and it'll be hard to tell. It'll be hard to
Philip's
tell.
pulling out his sword.
Philip's
pulling out his sword.
Nice. It's one I'll have to do. I have to get the screenshot out, or the maybe another time where I get the phone out. But like you can see, it looks like almost. So it's red with like, so it's clear red, but there's like stuff in there. But the way that the stuff is, it looks almost like hearts. So kind of like the going back to the vampire theme. I'll have to, maybe next time I'll have more time and I'll pull out the phone so I can get the close-up view on it. But yeah, I was kind of feeling like, it's one of those I've been seeing it every year. And this was the year I was like, all right, I'm doing it. I didn't buy too much. A lot of the stuff I got was free or like from doing things. So this year I was like, all right, two things I really want is I need some Battletech maps, which I got, and then I wanted some Dispelled dice. So we'll do that at a separate time. We've already gone. We're hitting the 2-hour point. So maybe I'll do that. I'll stay at the very end and do that. But oh man. So yeah. Shawn, any final thoughts wrapping up for Gen Con?
It was Gen Con. Hopefully next time there won't be a Disney product being released. That's all I got to say.
Yeah.
Otherwise, it was fine.
Also, I think it was Hoser 40K had mentioned during our Gen Con preview stream that we did. It was one of our oddball streams. He had mentioned this Everything Ever game, and I managed to get a review copy of that. That was really funny because I went up to Floodgate Games just to introduce myself and to get like just a contact card. And as soon as I mentioned I was a podcaster, he just grabbed this off a shelf and just handed it to me. But it was Sunday, so.
Oh, okay, it was Sunday. I was gonna say that probably became a default reaction. Hi, I'm a podcast. Yeah, here you go. Go away.
Well, I think that was weird because Sunday, with it being Sunday, and it's either sold or it's going on. I give it to you, or I'm having to pay to ship it back. And then one more other thing, I promise. No, I did not get Snap Ship Tactics. And all the hubbub, I kept forgetting to go back to actually try it. Beetle kept showing me. It's really cool. It's like basically X-Wing, but you like build your own ship. And it looks really cool. Because he made me I bought a bunch of stuff for him and brought it to he took me out for dinner on Saturday night, and it was really cool. I just kept forgetting to actually go, and the times I did remember, they had like a crowd around the booth and it was like impossible to get to it. So but one other thing that I just thought was kind of a funny ironic thing is that this past weekend we had the world's largest rubber duck at one of like our small little towns. And Ashley was super excited about it. She posted a bunch of pictures and stuff about it. Like a lot of the shops downtown made special duck-shaped items and chocolates and cookies and stuff like that. So I'm at Gen Con and I see this Ducks in Tow game. And it's got a bunch of like duck meeples and stuff. And like there's even part of the game is you're like having the ducks follow you around and stuff. This Ducks in Tow. So I managed to talk with the creator. This was Sunday again. I talked with the creator about it and mentioned the whole story with my wife wanting to try it out because of the whole giant world's largest duck thing. And she thought that was awesome. They've actually got a Kickstarter. It's so messed up. They were talking about they were at Gen Con this weekend, and then like Sunday's your cleanup day. Today they were going to be heading back, flying back home, and then tomorrow they're launching their next Kickstarter.
Oh wow!
Yeah, so that was Stephanie Kwok and First Fish Games. If you wanna keep an eye on Kickstarter for that. So yeah, I'll have at some point. Ashley and I will be trying this game out here soon. So yeah. Overall on Gen Con, I would say that it wasn't like my this was definitely kind of one of the more middling. I don't know if it was probably towards the bottom Gen Cons, but not because of the con itself. I think I had a very sour attitude going in, and just all like part of it's also because I've been kind of a rut for RPGs, so I wasn't signing up for that. I was like all in this space in my own head of like I need to do a bunch of content so that I can prove myself or whatever, this and that. So I think I was just in a negative mind frame going in, and that kind of made it so I wasn't signed up for a lot of stuff, and just meant I was on the floor a lot, which can be kind of depressing because that's when you're in the crowds. The best parts about Gen Con are when you get away from the dealer hall and you get to the hotels where things are a lot more managed. But I don't think the RPG problem is going to be a big problem now that I've got like expensive ass dice. I'm like, when's our next session? So,
yeah, I saw that in the Slack.
So next time I definitely need to take more advantage of, and I think I think Shawn's got something to this. I need to start looking at new things, like something different to do. Like, for instance, when we were heading up to the LARP, there was a putt-putt course. Like somebody took a ballroom and they made a dungeon-themed putt-putt course. And I was like, oh, that's cool. And I had like $12 of generics left over on Sunday. I was like, oh, I should go figure out. But then when I looked up the event, how much it cost, it was like $34, $38. I was like, okay, maybe
I spoke to a few people who did it, and they were raving about how awesome it is. Like, you have your character, and you like level up as you do.
But how long is it?
Yeah, I think it was like 45 minutes or an hour or something.
See, that seems like excessive for $38. Like if it was like 2 hours, then maybe.
But they had so many of them,
yeah,
and they were all sold out, right? Like, because you could just have people line up like a hole or two behind you. So you just keep going and going, right? But people said that they loved it.
Yeah, so and like I heard people talking about like there was, like you can take sword fighting martial arts classes on it, and Heather goes to so many different writing seminars and such. So I really need to make a better effort on doing newer stuff and not just the same old every year. I'll take a page out of your book, Shawn. So I don't know, Philip, are we going to be able to get you back next year?
I don't know, man. I'm trying.
I know. I was talking. We were having this discussion about with Heather and Mike, and he was like, I don't know, man. With his family now going to Disney every year, and he's got mancation and stuff.
No, I pray to God that's not an every year thing.
What, the Disney?
Yeah.
Okay.
Like it was cool. It was fun. It was great. That was a let's do, the kid turned 5 and we went to Disney. Okay, cool. maybe when that kid has a kid and that kid turns 5.
All right. Or maybe like 10 years, not every year.
yeah, maybe on the 60th anniversary, that'll be.
All right now. So, with that, I think that's we're going to call it for that one.
That's been our show, everybody. We want to thank Shawn for hanging out with us and putting up with our crap. He's been putting up with Chris's crap for, 4 days. Had to put up with it for a little longer. We appreciate that. Check us out on boardsandSwords.com/live. That's got the links to all of our streaming channels where you can find us. YouTube, Facebook. It's also got the schedule for when we decide to go live. Except for tonight, because tonight was unplanned.
Tonight was unplanned. It just ended up, everything worked out where I was able to get back in a decent time and get stuff edited, or the clips edited, and I just realized it was better to do everything live. We're doing it live!
Doing it live!
So, all right, send us feedback. We love it. We love hearing people talk about it. That was the best part about meeting Beetle and his wife, was just getting a chance to talk with someone that gets to hear this stuff and getting their feedback on it. So email us, feedback@boardsandswords.com, Facebook @boardsandswordspod, Instagram @boardsandswordschris, also on Threads now @boardsandswordschris. Boardsandswords.com for links to everything else like the Patreon. We didn't mention it. There's so much stuff to talk about. But if you want to hear us do the Dungeon Crawl Classics and hear the Love Mutants from Castle Heartache, you got to check it out. Support the show, boardsandSwords.com/Patreon. And we'll be back in 2 weeks with another episode. Maybe next week we'll do some more. Maybe next week, I still got tons of photos from Gen Con, but I don't know. That, maybe we'll set up, we got games here that we could play. We could start a Freelancers campaign, something like that. Who knows? Who knows? Who knows? In the meantime, remember that every gamer has a story, and at Gen Con this year, it was 70,000 people trying to get a Disney card game.
Hello.
Hi.
Yep, I don't know.
Are we off?
Well, I was fading out the music there.
Okay, gotcha. Well, the music killed your audio.
Yes. Okay. I was wondering if it was just me or if it was happening.
Gotcha.
Chris was trying to tell a joke at the end, and I was like, I can't hear you.
Oh. Well, they probably heard it. That's all that matters. All right. Now I'm killing the stream. Good night, everybody.
Good night.